The day my life split in two.
I'll never forget that smell. Antiseptic, sharp, almost bitter. The quiet beeping of monitors, the sting in my ribs with every shallow breath. I thought surviving the accident was the end of the trial, but the real collision hadn't even happened yet. It walked in through the hospital door, wearing my wife's perfume and my best friend's shoes. Linda and Mark, her lipstick a little too perfect for a wife visiting her injured husband. His hand wrapped around hers like he'd been there forever. My best friend of 20 years, the man who knew every story I'd told, who held Ethan the day he was born. My brother, I thought, until that day. Adam, Linda said, voice rehearsed, calm, cold. We need to talk. Talk. That word used to mean something simple. Not anymore. She kept going, each line sliding like ice. I can't do this marriage. I deserve more. Mark and I, we're together. We'll file for divorce. If you're sensible, you'll sign hand over what's fair, and we can all move on. I turned to Mark. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Got anything to say?
His voice cracked once. It just happened. We didn't plan this. You didn't plan, I said, but you rehearsed.
Linda leaned in, jaw tight. Don't be dramatic. Think of Ethan. He needs stability. Mark can give him that.
I smiled, not kindly, a thin line that said I was still here. 3 days, I said softly. Give me 3 days.
3 days for what? She asked.
For the dust to settle, I said. For the paperwork to find its way home. They left together. I watched the door swing. The room felt bigger and I felt smaller and yet clearer. Pain in my bones, yes, but a steadier thing rising under it. My name is Adam Stone, 45, father, husband, son. The order used to be different. The order changes when your life does. I grew up in a town where your father's laugh could travel a block, where your mother fed kids who didn't belong to her and made them belong anyway. My father worked with his hands, a carpenter who believed wood carried memories. He'd run his palm along a table and tell me who sat there, who laughed, who prayed before meals. He showed me how to sand out roughness, how to square edges, how to keep steady even when the grain fought back. My mother? She was softer, but no less strong. She sang while she cooked, hummed when she worried, and reminded me that kindness lasts longer than anger. She let neighborhood kids eat at our table, and when they left, she'd wink at me and say, "See, Adam, no one is hungry when we have enough to share." They left me lessons. Fix what's broken. Keep your word. Look a man in the eye and mean it. They also left me land, a few rentals, bonds that grew quietly while I learned slow things like patience. I never bragged, not to the neighbors, not to Linda. Money doesn't make a man. Choices do.
Mark and I met when we were kids. He lived 2 streets down. We raced bikes until our legs cramped, fought once over a baseball card and laughed about it the next day. He was reckless. I was steady. Somehow it balanced, or so I thought.
I met Linda in college. Rainy Thursday umbrella flipped inside out. She laughed bright and careless. We shared a cab, a coffee, and by that night, a future. She wanted a home filled with light curtains that moved when the window was open, a family to fill the rooms. I wanted that too. We fell fast before we knew how to fall safely. Our wedding was small but fierce with joy. My father cried when he gave the toast. Linda's mother whispered that she expected great things for her daughter. I believed we could deliver them. I promised Linda nights filled with laughter, a roof that never leaked, and a family she could be proud of. Mark stood beside me as best man, loud shirt, louder grin. He owed the world more than he owned, but he paid me in loyalty, or so I believed. We married young. The apartment had thin walls and a heater that rattled like a stubborn engine. I worked long hours at a job that paid in pride. Linda planned rooms we didn't have yet, curtains we couldn't afford yet. 2 years later, Ethan arrived, small loud a fist around my finger that taught me what forever meant. I cried when he sneezed. I promised his world would never shake.
Ethan grew fast. Birthday cakes with lopsided frosting, late nights rocking him when fevers came, soccer games on muddy fields. Linda smiled, then too proud of the boy who had her eyes. Those moments stitched me tighter to them both.
When Ethan was 5, I taught him to ride a bike. He wobbled, fell, scraped his knee. Tears welled, but he looked at me, waiting. I steadied the seat, ran beside him, breathless until he finally pedaled on his own. He turned back, grinning wide, shouting, "Dad, I'm doing it." And I thought, this is what life means. Not money, not houses, just that smile. We camped by the river once, just us. Built a fire, 2 big roasted marshmallows until they blackened. Ethan fell asleep against my chest, smelling of smoke and sugar. I stayed awake long after staring at the stars, thinking that being a father was both terrifying and holy. Christmas mornings were chaos. Torn wrapping paper, Ethan in pajamas covered with cartoon rockets, Linda laughing with coffee in her hand. Those mornings I believed nothing could break us. I was wrong. We were happy for a time, or we were good at the picture of happy. Smiles on holidays, matching sweaters when someone held a phone. In the quiet hours, Linda sighed at bills. She envied bigger yards, shinier cars. I told her I was trying. She said trying was for men who weren't winning. Mark was always around. Dinners, ball games, poker nights. Then it was more time on our couch, more time in our kitchen, more time with Linda when I stayed late to keep the lights on. I ignored perfume in my truck that Linda didn't wear. I ignored a girl's trip that didn't line up. I ignored a seafood receipt from Mark's favorite place. I ignored the look they shared when I came home early one Friday and found them whispering by the sink. Arguments with Linda grew sharper. She accused me of being content with too little. I accused her of chasing what didn't matter. Ethan heard too much. He wore headphones at dinner. He answered with shrugs. He watched me like I was a cliff eroding.
I hated that. I hated what we were teaching him about love. I told myself I was staying for him for stability, for normal. But the normal we had built was already fractured.
I kept signed divorce papers in my drawer. I never filed them. They were a promise I didn't want to keep. A life jacket under the bed. It was a Tuesday. Rain on the road. A driver on his phone. A truck that didn't brake. Lights like fire. Glass like rain. Pain that swallowed everything. Then quiet. Then antiseptic. Then beeping. Ribs that hurt when I breathed. A shoulder that throbbed. A voice saying my name. And then the door opening. Linda and Mark holding hands. Like a picture someone never meant me to see.
I understood suddenly. The accident wasn't the end. It was the beginning. And the beginning wanted everything.
3 days, I told them. My voice steady my hands, not... They left and I called Ms. Garcia, the lawyer, whose card I'd kept since the first perfume. I told her the truth. The facts, the guesses, the pieces that fit and the ones that cut. She told me what to lock, what to move, what to watch. She asked if I was ready to be brave. I said yes. My voice believed me before my bones did. I froze joint cards. I shifted rental income back to the trust my father named after my grandmother. I changed passwords Mark could recite in his sleep. Then I texted Ethan, "I'm okay, kid. I love you. Come when you can, he replied with one word. Coming. Ethan arrived that night. Hair messy, fear in his eyes. He sat by my bed holding my hand, the way he used to when he was small, and storms scared him. Dad, he whispered, is it true? About Mom and Uncle Mark. I swallowed pain not just in my ribs. It's true, son. But what's truer is this you and me, we're still solid. He nodded jaw tight, trying not to cry. I'd never loved him more than in that moment. 3 days later, Linda came back, papers in hand, Mark at her side. But Ms. Garcia was waiting too. She wore grey glasses that could cut glass and a calm that rattled Linda's rehearsed lines. Linda spoke first, sliding the stack forward. Adam, this is fair. I get the house half the rental's joint custody of Ethan. You get the truck, your tools, and your pride. Mrs. Garcia didn't flinch. Mrs. Stone, my client, has evidence of marital misconduct. He also holds title to the rentals through a trust predating the marriage. As for custody, Ethan is 15. His voice matters. If you insist, we'll see you in court. Mark shifted suddenly smaller. Linda's mouth pressed thin. She hadn't expected resistance from the man in the hospital bed.
I leaned forward, ribs, screaming, voice low but steady. You walked in here thinking I was broken, but I'm more awake than I've ever been. You don't get my house. You don't get my son. You don't get me.
The fight moved to courtrooms. Fluorescent lights, wood panels, the smell of old paper, and newer lies. Linda's lawyer painted me stubborn, controlling, blind to her needs. They spoke of stability, of Mark's income, of Linda's nurturing. They tried to turn betrayal into virtue. But Ms. Garcia dissected calmly. She presented receipts, timelines, photos. She called neighbors who saw Mark's car too often too late. She reminded the judge that a trust is not a joint account and that Ethan was old enough to choose.
Ethan testified, voice shaking, but words sharp. I want to live with my dad. He tells me the truth. He shows up. Linda cried. Then the kind of tears that come when your plan starts slipping. Mark stared at the table.
The judge's gavel fell weeks later. The house mine. The rentals intact. Custody primary with me. Linda, visitation. Mark, silent.
I signed papers, but not the ones Linda dreamed of. These were papers that freed me.
Freedom doesn't taste sweet at first. It tastes like silence in rooms that used to hold laughter. It tastes like Ethan heating leftovers while I balance bills. It tastes like nights staring at ceilings wondering what pieces of me were real, what pieces were borrowed lies. But slow it shifted. The garage reopened. I fixed engines, grease under nails, sweat on back. Customers came one by one, neighbors who remembered the man I used to be. They trusted me again, not because of money, but because of steadiness. The diner down the street took me in, too. Part-time shifts, coffee pots, eggs over easy. I learned that serving food heals differently than fixing cars. Strangers left lighter, and I did too. Ethan adjusted in his own way. Headphones off at dinner, stories about school spilling out again. He struggled, sure. Nights he asked why she left, why Mark. Questions I couldn't answer clean. But he also laughed again, sometimes loud, sometimes quiet, but true. Seasons passed. Summer sweat on the garage floor. Autumn leaves at the diner window. Winter mornings shoveling snow before Ethan's bus came. Spring rains washing the old dust off. We were building something piece by piece, season by season. Not the picture-perfect family Linda wanted to parade, but something sturdier, something honest.
He was 16 when the quiet got heavy. When the world pressed down and asked if he could breathe under it, he could. Not every day, but more days than not.
He came home late from practice, shoes squeaking on the kitchen tile, dropped his bag, opened the fridge. "We got anything sweet?" he asked.
"Only the truth," I said, "and half a pie from Tasha at the diner."
He grinned, took the pie, 2 forks. We ate from the tin, leaning on the counter like men who had built a kitchen together, because we had one mug at a time, one morning at a time. He told me about a girl, Mia, a laugh that made bad days forget their name. "I don't know if I can trust it," he said. "I don't want to be like us." "You won't be," I said. "Love isn't inherited, only choices are. You write your own chapter." He nodded, eyes wet but steady. "Okay," he said. "I'll write slow." On Saturdays we ran the river road, slow at first, then faster, the way trust follows discipline. His stride lengthened. His voice did too. He told me about coaches, teachers, a friend who was drifting a test he thought he failed. He didn't. He rarely did. At the garage I showed him torque and patience. How a seized bolt doesn't yield to anger. How heat and time persuade what force can't. "This is about cars." "Right," he said. "And people," I said. "Mostly people." Some nights he worked the diner, plate up, plate down, learned names, learned that coffee poured at the right moment is a kind of mercy, learned the town the way a boy learns the layout of his own hand. He still missed her. Of course he did. Some Sundays she came, brought a cake that tasted like apology, hugged him too long, too tight, asked me for grace with her eyes. I gave it, but not the keys. Boundaries are fences you build around your peace. I kept ours painted and high, not to keep her out, to keep our quiet in. The gym smelled like rubber winter coats, old popcorn, lights humming like a hive, the band grinding out songs older than anyone on the floor. I sat halfway up with a coffee that forgot to be hot. Carter prowled the opposite sideline, jacket too shiny, voice too loud. The ref warned him once, twice. He smiled like a man who doesn't hear last chances. Ethan started careful, a layup, short, a pass safe. Then he found his breath, a steal, a break. Glass, kiss, 2. Next trip, pull up from the elbow. The net made that clean whisper that reminds you why nets exist, I shouted once. The sound surprised me. It sounded like a man who remembered joy.
Tie game. 7 seconds. Coach drew ink on a clipboard like he could bend time. Ethan was the decoy, a lie we needed to sell. The defense bought it, left the truth standing alone. The ball found him anyway. One dribble. Rise. Release. It hung there like it didn't owe gravity a thing. Then it chose us.
The gym blew out its lungs. Carter went at the ref, jaw hard, eyes glassy. Security nudged him toward the exit like easing a storm through a door. He barked about being robbed, being right. Ethan didn't hear him. He was under a pile of teammates. When he fought his way out, he searched the bleachers, found me, no scene, just eyes, a handshake from far away. Proud of you, proud of us. That night, he slept on the couch with the net around his shoulders. I tucked a blanket over his legs, turned out the porch light, listened to a town that finally sounded like home. Paperwork doesn't end when gavels do. There were orders, calendars, signatures that made our weeks official. Sometimes we sat outside courtrooms that smelled like lemon cleaner while lawyers checked watches. We shared mints, didn't talk, didn't need to. He leaned his shoulder into mine. I leaned back. The bench learned our
Wait. The judge liked facts, preferred dates to adjectives. She asked if school was steady. It was if sleep had returned. Mostly, if we were following the plan, we were when we left, she said, Mr. B.
Stone. Good work? Like we had built a shed she could see from her window? Maybe we had. Winter taught us where the draft crawled under the back door. We stuffed it with an old towel from the garage. Spring traced temporary rivers down the drive. We learned which boots to trust. Summer baked the porch boards until they smelled like pencil shavings. Fall shook the trees loose of what they didn't need. I split logs in the side yard. Ethan learned the rhythm, set strike breath. Feels like meditation with consequences, he said. That's living, I said. We both laughed. The diner found its weather. Mornings, with Mr. Miller on the corner stool arguing crosswords with the judge. Tasha ordering eggs over easy and hope on the side. The VFW drummer teaching Ethan paradiddles with 2 spoons on the counter. Aunt May's note proved right again and again. Feed people, they forget to be strangers. Some afternoons Linda called from a parking lot that sounded like the ocean, said Carter was complicated. I kept answers short. I'm glad you're safe. He's doing well. Stick to the schedule. Fences stay painted when you mind them. Carter drifted as storms do when they run out of heat. A short piece in the paper months later. Public disturbance. Suspended from coaching. Not drama, just gravity. He came by the diner once. Stood outside. Didn't come in. Left. I watched from the pass window. Felt nothing louder than relief. The town does its own math. People learn. People move on. We drove 2 states for a college visit. Bricks the colour of late apples. Trees pretending to be on fire. The campus smelled like coffee and beginnings. He walked ahead, measuring the world and himself. We sat in a lecture where a professor made history feel like a story you could edit. Ate in a cafeteria that believed in beige. Found a gym and shot in our socks until a custodian laughed and brought a ball with actual air. On the drive back, the radio lost the station. The road talked for us. He asked if regret ever stops. No, I said. But it gets quieter when you keep better company. He fell asleep near the state line. Jaw slack boy and man sharing one face. I watched him in the mirror, thought about my father's laugh, my mother's pie, how both are gone and neither has left. Thought about Linda's coffee cup, cooling on a table she couldn't keep warm. Thought about Mark under harsh store lights. Thinner.
Older? Not my enemy. Not my problem. Just a man without a party. She came to the diner alone, ordered coffee, no cake. Held the mug like it might remember her name. I thought I wanted a bigger life, she said. I just wanted an easier one. Easy and good don't always travel together, I said.
Do you hate me? She asked.
No, I said, feeling how true it was. I'm busy.
She smiled, small honest. Left a tip that was too much and not enough. Ethan watched her go. Looked at me. I shrugged. He shrugged. Some stories don't need commentary.
Later, I wrote a letter I never sent. Folded it. Put it where I keep things that don't need to travel. Some words work better just by being thought. I saw him by the hardware. Grease under his nails. Work had found him. Thought you'd hit me, he said. I said, I stopped making space for you.
He nodded. Didn't ask for forgiveness. I didn't offer it. Maybe one day. Maybe never. He moved 2 towns over, chasing another start that never really began. Some men build, some men borrow. He never learned the difference. A storm rolled through, power out, thunder dragging furniture across the sky. We lit candles, played cards, told the same stories, and let them be new. He fell asleep on the couch, long limbs everywhere. I covered him with my grandmother's quilt, watched lightning stitch the horizon. For a second I missed the ease of the lie I used to live. Then he murmured, half asleep, "Love you, Dad." The storm turned back into weather. In the morning, the coffee was hot. The world had edges I could hold. Another night we drove past the diner, windows down, music up. He said he was afraid of loving wrong. I told him, fear is just your heart asking for a plan. Make one, keep it, review it with someone who tells you the truth. He laughed, wiped one quick tear with the back of his hand, turned the volume higher. He stood on a stage with a square of paper in his hand, mortarboard, just a little crooked. The gym looked different under caps and gowns. He scanned the crowd until he found me, lifted his chin, smiled wide, proud. I felt it land. The thing we built. The thing that didn't break.
After he hugged me hard, whispered, "We did it." I said, "We're doing it."
We ate burgers in the truck bed behind the diner, the sky doing that slow orange thing it does when it forgives the day. He talked about majors and loans and miles. I talked about oil changes and texts from your old man. We both pretended to be brave. We were enough. People ask for a moral. I don't have a ribbon for this. I have a porch that faces west, so I can watch endings turn into beginnings. I have hands that fix what can be fixed. A heart that has learned it doesn't have to fix
Everything. Strength doesn't shout, it stacks. Plates, days, choices, one true on top of another. Love is not a prize, it's maintenance. Forgiveness isn't approval, it's a fence around your peace. I am not who I was when the hospital door opened. I'm slower to anger, quicker to laugh. I measure men by how they show up on boring Tuesdays. I give my son advice he'll ignore until the day he repeats it to a friend and calls it his. That'll be my favorite theft.
Most nights end the same. The bell over the diner door, chairs upside down on tables, a mop that leaves the floor honest. Ethan counting the till, me counting blessings and taxes. The sign clicks dark. The glass throws back a man I recognize. We step into the alley. The town hums like a small engine that refuses to quit. We walk home. Quiet. Okay. More than okay. Building something. One meal. One morning. 1 mile at a time. And if the wind moves through the herb garden just right, if the barn smells like sawdust and sun, if a basketball hits rim kisses, glass falls true, I hear my father's laugh in mine, my mother's calm in my hands, my son's future in the way he says yeah and means yes. 3 days after the hospital I began again. Today, I keep going.